Happy Monday, everybody. Hope your week's starting out well. As always, to learn a little bit more about the Monday Meristem email practice, check the description below to find the intro video where I break down kind of what each element is. As always, too, like, subscribe, share with your friends if you like the content, and leave any comments. But let's get into it. So the last couple of weeks, we have been exploring some of the basic Meristem philosophical principles, particularly the basis of the lens that we use, which is movement, and the subtle movement patterns of things that are coming up and how we try to address those and work with those. This week, we are launching into the fourth kind of philosophical pillar of Meristem, which is about your outcome. And at Meristem, our primary outcome is greater independence. Now, this can look very different for each person. Some might be able to attain a job or college. Some might be able to just go back home and be more helpful around the house. Some might be able to have a social life. Some might struggle still to have a social life, but be able to take care of themselves. And so each person is kind of unique on the spectrum or the scale of what is possible. And it's really important when you're trying to measure this to look at somebody's capacity. Where are they at now? Where do we think that capacity could get? What's its ultimate potential? And then what are working backwards from the ultimate potential, what are the stepping stones from where they're at to that potential that are going to help them at least move the needle forward? And then be very realistic about which step needs to occur to get to the next phase of the development of that capacity. And so this week, we're really looking at this concept of outcome. What do you want at the end? If you're going to put something into something and you want an outcome, the question is, how do you get there and how do you help somebody else get there? So what's the process? What's the process by which we get from A to B, or from input to outcome? And with Meristem, independence is basically self-reliance in something, in a skill, in a life task, cooking, cleaning, hygiene, being able to move a wheelbarrow from one place to another. There's many ways that you can look at that. And so this week, we're going to explore looking at the outcomes that we are shooting for and noticing the capacities that we have and how those capacities are overdeveloped, underdeveloped, being developed, and how is that relating to the outcomes? And are the outcomes around us, or how we engage with those outcomes, being dictated by an internal drive of self-determination versus an external drive of the world saying you got to do it this way or that way? Neither one is wrong, but just knowing and being able to understand where they're coming from, those pushes, those pressures, really helps. And then you can take the outcomes that you're shooting for and come back to the process to be successful. So our practice for this week is presence. So what we're doing is coming and tuning in to these capacities that we may have and looking at where there's ones that could be a little bit more emphasized, where they're not being emphasized. What's driving the decision making around those capacities that I'm engaging or not engaging in a given moment? And we want to tune in. Presence, as a reminder, is the ability to know where you're at internally and what's going on around you externally at the same time, while being aligned in the activity and task that you're trying to do. So ultimate presence would be inwardly, I'm focused on the task at hand. Outwardly, I'm engaged in the task at hand. And those two things lead to full presence. And so in this regard, I want to bring my full presence to the capacities that I'm bringing and how I can develop those towards having better outcomes for myself, looking at my movement patterns and making adjustments, but just becoming aware of how that's happening. The value for this week is I am the change I wish to see. Collaboration. It's a little bit paradoxical to say I am the change I wish to see and collaboration. So what does that mean? It means that when I identify something, I got to be the one that does it. But to identify something, having various perspectives to explore and see something from a well-rounded point of view can be really helpful for the activity of self-change. Oftentimes, to really pinpoint a thing that I need to adjust or find the linchpin to the spot where if I can change that, a lot of other things start coming into alignment. I need that collaborative effort from the people around me to help me fully see and get perspective. Ultimately, then, I have to be the decision maker about how I engage and what I go about doing to make those changes. That lands on me. And that's where it's really important to explore, am I doing this because of somebody else's perspective, or am I doing it because I've really assimilated everything that's come towards me in collaboration and made it my own, and then made my decision out of my own free kind of cognizing of everything that I've explored. So just to kind of recap for this week, we're looking at outcomes goals leading to increased independence as a foundational Meristem philosophy. Those could be college, those could be first friends. It really is independent to each individual and how they're determining their life moving forward. It's really important to identify clarity in pathways. Ambiguity can just feel like you're meandering. And so it's really important to track the steps that you want to take and make those steps clear. And oftentimes starting from the end and working backwards is a better way than from my starting point to the end. We're looking at change. We're looking at becoming present to ourselves. We're practicing aligning both internal and external elements to become more aware of my movement habits as it relates to my capacities and my capacities and how they're being utilized and engaged on a daily basis. I'm looking at my identity and identifying the forces that I'm using to navigate on a daily basis and how that's working for me. And then collaboration. So I'm using my environment to help me see myself better, and then using my own internal motivation to help myself make the changes that I see. And as we say at Meristem, I have to be the one that models that for myself first, then for other, then community, etc. And so this is the focus for the week, looking at the fourth pillar, which is outcomes and change and leading to greater independence. And really what we're doing there is trying to identify what gets us to that greater independence and what are the things that are inhibiting us getting to that greater independence, and how could we grow those capacities towards the greater independence goal. So with that, that's the Monday practice for this week. Let's go forward and awaken the possible.